Hey Anna, happy Wednesday. Couple of things before I launch into camp talk. First, it's really hot outside, like 80, and I don't even know what temperature it is outside right now, but it's really hot and I hate it. Second, anti-abortion people, anti-abortion protesters are currently outside Westview protesting, but not outside, just on the crosswalk, you know, in front of elementary school children, handing out their graphic pamphlets with their graphic signs, and I wish I had a pamphlet so I could just show you how ridiculous and terrible it was, because it was ridiculous. I had a couple favorite things about it, one of which was like on the back how it said "You've been lied to" in really big black scary font. My other favorite was that on one of the pictures demonstrating, you know, abortion, it took like this terrible picture of a fetus fairly late in the process, but totally mangled and really graphic, and they just threw that in there, and it's really obvious that's not like what it actually is, just doing the scare attack. Oh my god. I was at the library today and there were a couple of girls working on like big posters to protest against the protest, which is cool. Enough of that, let's get into camp. Day one of camp, I go to the bus and do the bus things. I met this one guy, he was named Connor, and his camp name was Arctic, and Emily and I hung out with him afterwards, but he was pretty cool, and the bus ride there was basically just trying to memorize songs and panicking about it because I'm not good at memorizing things quickly, but hey. First day was all just training and basic training for like basic things, and then you split into your field studies that you choose, which I did plant, so I learned all the stuff I talked about before. This doesn't fit in at all on the track I'm going on, but I would like to mention that the nurse there was like the cutest, most wonderful lady I have ever met, and oh my god. She was always smiling and she was just the sweetest, and everyone thought it. Like I mentioned, I'm like, yeah, my crush here is just like Morning Glory, which was her name, and she's just the sweetest. We all the girls that night, all the girls slept in the one bunk and all the guys slept in the other one, and then next day the kids arrive and we get our we got our cabins, and our cabin leader, other person. My co-counselor was this girl named Squeak, and Squeak, though she was a very lovely girl, it was kind of like having another child in my cabin. She's very loud naturally, so she would kind of just yell everything, but not meanly. She just yelled a lot, and it got frustrating at times when we had FOB time, which was not Fall Out Boy, but flat on bunk, where we just had to stay silent for 20 minutes while the other cabins were taking a shower, and she was the one who would talk and get the kids talking during it, and that was just like, in the first one they had like their intro field study, so I didn't actually teach anything, I just had to like help along, and that was an experiment of putting the, you know, felt in the front and trying to get tracks, which is cool. Today we have field study teaching, which went fairly well. I co-taught with the guy I talked about, Connor / Arctic, and that was pretty cool, except he obviously was really good at teaching, at least, kind of, but like, he would talk over me, and even on the parts where I said, hey, I got this station, he would just like randomly butt in and do all the teaching, and it was like, okay, calm down. The second time around I taught with this girl named Flea, and it went really well. She was very nice, and she knew things she didn't know quite well, like I knew, and things I didn't know quite well she knew, so it went fairly well. Both groups of kids right there were like really great. On the next day, I'm skipping a lot of things, I know, but I'm gonna talk about those later. On the next day, I taught alone, and with the first group, it was beautiful and wonderful, and all the kids would ask questions and were very wonderful. But the second group was a nightmare, and I wanted to die. There was like the two people who'd always be whispering by each other, and then the two people who just didn't understand, and one person who would just ask about the bathroom every 2 minutes for the last 20 minutes and keep on complaining about how long it was going, and it was terrible because like by the end of it they were all just like complaining to me about how they all needed to go to the bathroom and none of them wanted to learn. Oh god. It was bad. that was my last teaching experience. I'm really glad I didn't have a group like that early on, because I know that would have like destroyed my motivation. My actual cabin, that group was pretty cool. There were a couple of girls in there who were like also kind of loud, so it was hard to get them on task a lot, but there were like a couple in there that were my favorite. There was this one girl, Maribel, who would always be very quiet and finish all of her things very quickly, and she was my favorite. And then there was Cassie, who's also quite quiet and would finish everything quickly and also just kind of be mildly annoyed during everything, because like our group was kind of we were late for a lot of things just because our girls would take so long just to do simple tasks, and I don't understand why. It would be like, hey guys, put on your PJs, and that would take 15 minutes. Like, we were the salmons, the coho salmon. One of the things we had to do as a cabin was make a skit, and we only had 2 cabin times. The first one we just kind of like got a general idea, and the second one, when we tried to practice it, the time before campfire, they so it was like the cabin time before campfire, and they kept on getting off task, and it got to a point that I decided that this was their own punishment. Having a bad skit was their punishment for not being able to remain on task. Because my co-counselor was not very helpful in the fact that she was talking to. Our skit ended up being kind of bad. It was about food waste, and I just narrated it while they did it, and I'm like really pretty good at narrating things, so like that went well, but like, gosh. Campfire also, there was this girl, her name was Slice. I wanted to marry her because she was really, really cool, and she had counseled a bunch of times, and she was a nerd fighter. And first day she actually wore a Nerd Fighteria merch hoodie, which was cool, but she sung, she wanted to sing a Hank Green song, but she didn't want to do it alone because she sung a lot of the campfires, so she asked me, and I was like, okay, even though I don't know a lot of Hank Green's music, and I didn't know the song. She's like, oh, you just have to sing the chorus with me, I'll write it down for you. And so after lunch, after dinner, I'm like, hey, did you write it down? She's like, oh, no, not yet. And so I see her a little bit later, I'm like, hey, did you write it down yet? She's like, oh, no, not yet, I'll give it to you before campfire starts. So I'm like, she told me that I could just, I don't have to memorize it, I can look at it, it's fine. I'm like, well, okay. But then when she gave it to me at the beginning of campfire, I look at it, and there were so many parts of it I couldn't read. And then when we were walking up to perform it, I was like, hey, what does this say? She's like, you'll get it. Didn't tell me. So that was kind of embarrassing, but hey, whatever. It was still really cool. She also sung like another song, I don't remember what the song was, but it was like super great. Oh my god, I wanted to cry. Our cabin had this really weird thing against the turtles for some reason. I'm pretty sure it's because our counselor had a crush on the other counselor, so like, I don't know, some sort of thing started, and all the kids will always scream at each other, but she would scream at them too, so I can tell them to stop screaming since she was, and it was like, I feel like I'm forgetting so many things. I just like can't think of everything, because it's just so much. It's just like, such a large amount of things. My name was Fable, by the way. I don't know if I've told you that, but that was my camp name, Fable. So throughout this whole time we had our program staff leader and our field study leader, like each person, whatever, had their person. So my field study leader was Swamp because he was the plant studies guy, and then Bacchus, I don't know, I was never able to say his name, but he was my program leader. And so at the end they gave assessments. So I'll just, there we go. Cedar Ridge. So this is from Bacchus. Amanda was an excellent counselor this week. She had some problems with time management, but that could be easily fixed by keeping students on task. Amanda showed great skill in building bonds, creating very positive cabin environments in the future. In the future would like to see her keep her students more on task. Amanda displayed a quietly enthusiastic leadership style this week. While effective, we would like to see her be even more enthusiastic in the future so it affects even more students. Another way he put it while he was talking to me was under the radar enthusiastic, because out of the cabin I usually wasn't that loud, mostly because I had my cabin co-counselor who was always yelling, so I didn't want to also be yelling because I wanted to balance it out. I don't know. Maybe that's just me making excuses, maybe I'm right, that's what I think. This is from Swamp. Amanda quickly mastered the field study material and presented it thoughtfully. She demonstrated strong teaching skills and kept students engaged with open-ended questions. Amanda was able to redirect off-task behavior while remaining calm and positive, even with challenging groups. Kinda. She worked well alone and with a co-teacher. Amanda exceeded over expectations for a first-time counselor. We were very impressed with her teaching abilities and her maturity in response to challenge. We would gladly welcome her back as an ODS counselor. Another thing, sad. On the last day, when all the counselors were standing up there for like whatever the picture and all the kids were sitting down, the program staff was like, oh, we have this whole thing, and they started passing out these. So that was made by the kids. I think it might have, not only like in the cabin, but also I think maybe others, and that was, I was standing up there with Emily beside me, and both of us just like started crying. It was ridiculous because of all those, Okay, Anna. This video is terribly, terribly wrong. I'm gonna think of more things to tell you about camp, but until then, I'm gonna say goodbye, and I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll talk to you on Friday.